It's 2024 and marketing is changing a lot. TikTok is launching TikTok shops, Meta is trying to cling to its power over social, and AI is making things a heck of a lot more efficient. With all these platforms changing so much, it's hard to keep track and keep up to date with everything that's happening. But one platform remains calm, cool, and collected. Email marketing has changed very little over the last decade. And sure, you can go follow the next shiny object, try the next tip, trick, or hack to hack your way to your first million or first $10 million in sales. But at the end of the day, email is tried and true. These hacks and tips and tricks are going to lose their effectiveness as soon as enough people catch on, but email is one of the most profitable channels that you could use for your business. Boasting an average of 42 times ROI on every dollar you spend on email, it can be a huge driver of new business, but also can increase profitability of your other marketing efforts. After all, you spend so much time and money to drive people to your website, it's crucial to make sure that the people who are on your website actually convert and you squeeze the juice out of that as much as possible. In this video, I'm going to run through the email marketing strategies that we use to generate our clients millions of dollars and how you can too. This is stuff that you can use either as a beginner or as an expert. Either way, it's going to be beneficial for you. So let's dive in. So the first piece to all of this is list building. The most important part with email marketing is making sure you're actively collecting emails and you're building a list. Without this, it doesn't matter about any of the other steps. Now, before I dive into how you go about doing this, the number one mistake that we see brands make is buying a list. So please, for the love of God, don't buy a list. If you buy a list, you're going to get people who are not interested and have no idea who you are. At the end of the day, this is going to massively impact your deliverability, which will negatively impact the rest of your email marketing as a whole. What you do want people to do is opt into your list. And not only is this a best practice, it's also legally required. But just before I get to the best ways that you can do that, one of the biggest mistakes that we see brands make here is by having an offer or a giveaway that is completely irrelevant to what you're actually selling. For example, if you have a clothing brand and you're offering a free trip to Mexico, guess what? Everyone wants to go to Mexico. Everyone is interested in that offer. But if they opt in, they're more than likely interested in the Mexico trip as opposed to being interested in your apparel brand. So what you want to do is make sure that the people who are opting in, and if you do have a giveaway, that giveaway is actually related to your brand. That could be something along the lines of offering $100 or $1,000 shopping spree at your brand, something along those lines, which will actually get people who are interested in what you're selling. Now, what we do want to have is have a pop-up or some degree of an opt-in form on your website prompting people to join your list. Now, what's really important here is you want to consider it from their perspective. Why should they join your list? Most brands end up just saying, hey, join our list for updates and cool stuff. But what are the benefits to the customer? You want to make sure you're highlighting the benefits to the customer versus just saying, join our list to join our list. Oftentimes you can start with a discount. So that could be 10% off, $10 off, 15% off, $5 off, whatever that might be. But a general rule of thumb is actually if you have a lower average order value, like call it $100, and you are giving 10% off, that looks better than $10 off. But if you have a higher average order value, let's say $10,000, and you're offering 0.1% off, it looks better to have $100 or $250 off versus 0.1% off, because who cares about that 0.1%? It might be the exact same, but it's just framed slightly differently. Now, if you don't want to do a discount, another way to do that is through a free gift with purchase or a percentage off if they subscribe. You don't want to stop there though. So once you have something that's working, you always want to test and iterate and find the best possible option. Remember, if we have more people opting in, that's going to feed the rest of the system. So once you have that thing that's working, the first thing that we want to split test is the offer. So if you start with $10 off, try split testing a free gift, or try split testing 10% off instead. Other things that you can test out once you've tested out the offer is the creative, the text, the call to action button colors, the call to action text. You can test the layout of the pop-up as well. A variety of different things that you can test, but the first thing you should start with is the offer. Now, once you have a mechanism to build your list, you need to actually send an email. It's not as simple as just clicking send, batching and blasting your entire list. What it really breaks down to, in very simple terms, is 3 different steps. The first thing is you as the sender determines you want to send an email. The second piece is email records are authenticated and confirmed. This is done through your DNS settings. These are settings like DKIM, SPF, and DMARC. These are really, really important to look at and to have set up prior to even starting sending. Now, if you don't know how to do that, I recorded a full video on how to make sure you're actually getting your emails delivered. This is what you want to focus on here. Those 3 things are best practice, but they're also necessary starting February 2024. Now, once the email has gone through the authentication process, the third piece is based off of your email and domain reputation, you're going to land in one of 4 different folders. The first, and a happy place, is the inbox. The second is blocked. The third is spam. And the fourth is bounced. Now, if you don't land in the inbox and you're having problems with deliverability, there's 3 main metrics for you to look at. The first is the bounce rates, the second is the spam rates, and the third is the unsubscribe rates. Now, bounce rates are the percentage of emails that are bouncing and not being delivered to the desired recipient. Now, before we look at how to improve bounce rates, there's 2 main causes of a bounce. The first is a hard bounce. This is going to be something permanent, and usually what this is going to be is just an invalid email address. So if you enter an email address, or if a subscriber enters an email address and it's derek@ascend.media and they misspell it, that's going to be a hard bounce. The second type is a soft bounce. And this is usually something temporary and could be something like, hey, the email server is not working right now. There is a issue with the email recipient and they had a full inbox. It could be their DKIM, SPF, and DMARC records aren't lining up properly. Some ESPs, especially in Europe, actually have like very, very strict DKIM, DMARC, and SPF settings, and they need to all line up perfectly. And some we found recently also have to make sure that you're using a dedicated IP. So there's a number of different reasons here why you might have a soft bounce, but first identify, are you getting hard bounces or are you getting soft bounces? Now, one of the best ways to optimize and minimize your bounce rates is by creating segments for chronic bouncers. If, for example, you have someone on your list who has bounced 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 times, and they've received that many emails, there's something going on with their email, and you don't want to keep sending to them, even if they could be a potential client. The reason for that is because you're going to flag ESPs, because what they're looking for is if you're sending to a lot of people who are bouncing, they're going to be like, there's probably an issue with the people who they're sending to. And if you're getting a lot of bounces, what that's indicating to them is maybe you haven't updated your list, or maybe you don't have a lot of updated emails. So you're sending to a lot of people, and who does that? Oftentimes spammers. Now, the spam rates are the percentage of emails that are marked as spam. Before we look at best practices here, there's 3 main causes of high spam rate. The first is the recipient marked your email as spam. The second is your email deliverability reputation is low. And the third is something within your content is triggering ESPs. That could be things like only using images. It could be like using words like free or money or guarantee or those types of things. And it could also be not having an unsubscribe button and not including your address. I'm still surprised that ESPs don't make this mandatory. Now, if you're having these spam rate issues, here's some key tips on how to optimize them. Number 1, use a 60-40 rule of image to text ratio. You don't want 100% images, because oftentimes ESPs will find that, trigger that, and it'll trigger them to think, probably spam. A big one as well is just not using spam words. So make yourself aware of some of the key spam words. You can even just Google it, find spam words, and make sure that you're not using those consistently in your emails, whether it's your subject line or your content. Other things to look out for is making sure you have an unsubscribe button, an address, and then also that you have links in there that are credible and you don't have a ton of spam type of links. Now, if you're dealing with high unsubscribe rates are the percentage of people who are unsubscribing from your emails. Again, before we look at best practices here, let's look at why unsubscribes happen. Assuming you've acquired your list through one of the practices I mentioned before in step 1, the number 1 reason why you're getting unsubscribes is by lack of list segmentation. Now, segmentation is an absolute beast, and I could go on about this for hours, but there's a whole complete video on how to segment properly on our channel. So just go ahead, check that out if you want a full review of segmentation. The gist of it is basically just thinking and making sure that you're getting the right message in front of the right people at the right time. So we use a couple of different variables to look and make sure we actually are getting the right message in front of the right people at the right time. And you can check out that video if you want to learn a little bit more. But if you are struggling with these things, here's 3 other ways that you can decrease your unsubscribes. Number 1, keep only the most engaged users in your campaigns. Number 2, do not buy email lists. And number 3, segment giveaway customers or people who subscribe to giveaways into a different list. Okay, cool. So you've got to people's inbox. Now you need to make sure that your email actually gets opened. Because at the end of the day, if your email doesn't get opened, it doesn't matter how much time you spend on your design, doesn't matter how beautiful that design is. If people don't open that email, nothing else matters. Now, just before I dive into how we are able to get our clients 70 to 80% open rates, one of the biggest pitfalls we see brands make is just batching and blasting. So this goes right back to segmentation. Everything I'm about to tell you doesn't matter if you're not segmenting your list. If you're not getting in front of the right people at the right time with the right message, the rest of this does not matter. Now, assuming you are doing this, here are some of the best tests that we use to improve open rates. And number 3 is one that most brands don't usually do. The first is split testing subject lines. So with subject lines, you want to make sure you're sparking curiosity, you're creating intrigue, and you're keeping it short. The second piece is the preview text. So again, you want to spark that curiosity, create intrigue, create some urgency there as well, and personalize it too. Now, a big thing to note is you don't just want to restate exactly what you said in the subject line in the preview text. You want to give them a little bit more. You want to feed them in and rope them in a little bit more. And the third piece that most brands don't do is split test send times. This is going to vary dramatically depending on your brand. So for example, if you're selling to moms and dads, they're probably going to be pretty busy during the day. So maybe the best time is in the evenings. If you're sending to new entrepreneurs, those people are probably working a 9 to 5, and they're probably not going to be looking at their email as much as in the evening. But if you're selling to existing entrepreneurs and more established entrepreneurs, they're probably on their computers during the day. Now, platforms like Klaviyo actually allow you to use a smart sending function, which means you're using their AI and their machine learning to understand what the best times to send your emails are. So you've got to people's inbox, you've got them to open. Now the next piece is to get them to click. Now getting them to click isn't as hard as people make it out to be, and I'll get to a couple of tips in just a moment, but just first, here are some of the biggest mistakes that brands make inside of their email. Number 1 is trying to sell everything they have. Number 2 is no use of white space. Number 3 is no or too few CTAs. And number 4, it's actually the inverse, is too many CTAs. We try to keep our emails as simple as possible. So if you have an email, for example, that's asking people to subscribe to your list, to subscribe, to save, to buy this certain product, to check out your blog, there's too many calls to action and people have too many options. You want to give them one option and one thing to do at a time. Less is more here, and the fewer calories that someone has to burn in order to perform your desired action, the better. So keep your design clean and scannable. Remember, white space isn't a bad thing. People read like this. They don't read like this. You don't want to have an email that makes it look like they need to commit to reading a short story. Keep it short, keep it punchy, and make sure you mix in some images in there as well. It shouldn't just be an opportunity for you to word vomit everything you want to say. You want to keep it concise and keep the message clear. The fifth piece here, and this is what everything else has been building up to, is the conversion rates. So we went through collecting emails, getting the email delivered, getting people to open the email, getting people to click the email, and now we're trying to convert them. And that's where the website comes into play. If everything else is working well, if you're getting a lot of opens, a lot of clicks, but you're not getting purchases, start by looking at where you're sending people on your website, and then dive in deeper and try to understand where's the main bottleneck on the website. If you've determined the website is the bottleneck, then try to determine what stage of the awareness cycle people are at and what thing they may need to hear in order to overcome the objection they currently have. For example, if someone has initiated checkout and got all the way down the process to adding their credit card information in, but they just haven't clicked go, there's one of three things that usually happen there. It's going to be trust, it's going to be pricing, or it's going to be shipping costs. right? But if someone has just reached the product page, but they didn't add to cart and they didn't initiate checkout, maybe those people don't actually know what they want. So sure, retarget people with the same content, but another thing you're going to want to do there is mix up what you're sending people, because they might just have determined, you know what, this product might not be for me. They might also need to hear a little bit more about the product and how it might benefit them. So hopefully this video helped you and you got a lot out of it. If you did like it, I'd invite you to like and subscribe. And if you do have a brand doing over $50,000 a month in revenue, I'd invite you to apply. There's a link in the description where you can apply to work with us. We work with a select amount of D2C e-com brands, and we'd be happy to hop on a call. And if anything else, just see if we can help you out. So thank you so much for watching, and we will chat soon.